The factory floor was a blur of noise and metal, a place where the smell of grease clung to your skin like a second layer. Most days, it ran like clockwork. But not today. Today, one of the main production machines had ground to a halt, a temperamental piece of equipment that no technician had been able to revive. The line was frozen, tensions high. Workers stood around in silence, waiting. Mr. Callahan, the owner of the plant, paced restlessly. His business, his father's legacy, was losing thousands by the hour. That's when a quiet voice broke through the tension. "I think I can help," said a boy in an oversized hoodie, oil-streaked jeans, and sneakers that had seen better days. All heads turned. It was Mateo, the janitor's son. Mateo had come to the factory after school every day for the past year, waiting in the break room while his father, Luis, swept floors and scrubbed bathrooms. Nobody paid the boy much mind. To most, he was invisible. But what they didn't know was that while others scrolled their phones or chatted over coffee, Mateo watched the machines. Fascinated by their rhythms, the clicks and clanks of gears in motion. He'd sketch them in his notebook, figure out how they worked, and dream of building things that mattered. He was just 17, but his mind was a web of mechanical intuition and raw, untapped brilliance. Mr. Callahan raised an eyebrow. "You?" he said, half incredulous, half amused. The machine in question had stumped 3 senior engineers and an outside consultant. "This isn't a Lego set, kid." Laughter rippled through the crowd, but Mateo didn't flinch. "I know what's wrong," he said simply. "I've seen it stutter like this before. It's the belt misaligning the rotary shaft, it's warping under pressure because the left side torque controller isn't syncing." His words came out fast, confident, without bravado. Just facts. Mr. Callahan's face shifted from dismissive to curious. There was a beat of silence before the boss crossed his arms. "All right, kid. Prove it." He gestured toward the machine. The room went still. Mateo stepped forward. He didn't hesitate, his hands moving like he'd done this 100 times before. He crouched low, removed the panel, and used a discarded wrench to align the belt just so. Then, he tightened the controller's housing and made a minor adjustment with a bent screwdriver. Within 5 minutes, he stood and gave a nod. "Try it now." Someone hit the switch. The machine sputtered, then roared back to life, smoother than it had in weeks. It purred. The entire floor erupted in stunned silence. Then cheers. Mr. Callahan was speechless. For a moment, all he could do was stare. "How did you?" he began. Mateo shrugged. "I watch. I learn. I just like machines." His father stood nearby, wide-eyed, his mop forgotten. Tears welled in Luis's eyes as pride and astonishment fought for space in his chest. But the story didn't end there. Instead of just offering a pat on the back, Mr. Callahan called Mateo and his father into his office that same afternoon. It wasn't a long conversation, but it changed everything. Mr. Callahan offered Mateo a full scholarship to the state university's engineering program. "We'll sponsor you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And when you graduate, if you want it, there's a job waiting for you here. But bigger than that. I want you to help us build better machines. We need people who see things the way you do." Mateo was stunned. For a boy who had grown up on the edge of poverty, whose biggest dreams had always felt just a little too far, it felt like the world had opened up and finally noticed him. His father sobbed, deep, grateful sobs that came from a place of sacrifice and love. He had spent years cleaning floors so that his son might someday stand on higher ground. That day had come. Word of what happened spread beyond the factory walls. Local news picked it up. People were moved, not just by Mateo's brilliance, but by Mr. Callahan's response. The way he had looked beyond titles and uniforms, and seen something in a kid most had overlooked. Offers began pouring in for Matteo, from companies, schools, even non-profit groups who wanted to help other underprivileged youth access technical education. But Matteo never let it change him. He kept showing up to the factory every day after school until graduation, not because he had to, but because he wanted to be near the machines. He kept helping his father mop the floors until the last shift of senior year. "No one is too important to get their hands dirty," he would say with a smile. Years later, Matteo returned, this time as an engineer. Not just any engineer, but the lead designer on a line of efficient, low-cost machines aimed at small businesses. Machines that could be repaired easily and didn't require expensive technicians. Machines built by someone who understood what it meant to not be able to afford help when things broke. At the unveiling of the new model, Mr. Callahan stood beside him, older now, proud. He looked out at the crowd and said, "The future doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes, it wears an old hoodie and sits quietly in a break room, waiting for someone to believe." In a world where people often judge by title, dress, or background, Matteo's story reminded everyone of something far more powerful: the quiet strength of potential, the gift of opportunity, and the magic that happens when someone takes a chance on the overlooked. His journey became a symbol, not just of genius, but of kindness, humility, and the belief that no dream is too small to matter. And somewhere, in a dusty break room still echoing with the hum of machines, a sketchbook remains, its pages filled with dreams that, one by one, came true.